I'm Dr. Sharon Schutz, and I'm here with Bubba Smith. Is this correct? Okay,
That's right.
Bubba Smith. He is the son of Neil Smith, right?
That is correct.
All right, and everybody knows Neil. But he's on the city council, and he called me the other day, and he wanted to do an interview because of the elections coming up and the stuff going on with the water. And he said that he wants to, just have some transparency, so we as a community will know what's going on. Myself, again, I've not paid a lot of attention to it, but I know that there's been a real struggle. And I saw a thing the other day where they're looking at, was it $4 million and some
Yes,
on? Can you tell me about that first?
Sure. Well, since I've been there, we've had a few issues with water, and it seems here lately that maybe we've had a few more than normal. But besides that, we've already been in the process of working with engineers. We're really fortunate. We had a grant writer with Grant Services come to us, and she was excited about trying to get involved with the city. And she's been with us about, I would say, 7 or 8 months now, and she has been at the meetings, and she has really brought some light to what's available out there for us. So we have already been in the process of trying to get this grant. The engineer actually met with us the other night, and he was explaining more to it. As you know, it starts out with a grant writer. They put the grant in, and then it goes from there to the engineer and what have you. But the goal here is to eliminate some of our infrastructure and rebuild a stronger infrastructure. Our infrastructure in certain places are over 100 years old.
Right.
So therefore, it's not the same as the technology is nowadays.
Well, I noticed they have wooden pots in some places.
Yes, ma'am, or cast iron, clay. Now we're trying, of course, everything nowadays is PVC pipe.
Right.
So we're trying our best to have the funds to be able to do that. And a lot of that's with grants. A lot of people don't understand that, the city has to be run like a business, and you can't afford to go out and buy a new vehicle every single week. You've got to buy one, and it has to last you a while. And so where we really need to improve as a whole is that we need to be able to work on this infrastructure. So this is a step in the right place. We're going to start here and work our way around it.
Right.
But the goal is to, yes ma'am, have some stronger steel tanks put in and different lines run that will provide us with a better water system.
Well, I know Steve Jones took my husband and I out to the tank. It's been over a year. They were going through some struggles back then. And he showed us the underground tank and how it was. Is that where the problem is? I was told that there's that
was one of the problems. You're talking about the spot out on the end of town going towards Huntsville.
Right, yes.
Yes, ma'am. Steve actually called me when we had that issue, and I was able to go out there. And we looked at it, and what was found is around the perimeter of it, there were actually holes in the concrete. And that structure is made out of concrete. So therefore, those holes made it available for any type of larva or anything to get in there. And that's our job, is to protect that from people having that in their system. So, I hate to use the same analogies, but we don't always know we have an oil leak in a vehicle until someone points it out to us, or our vehicle stops running. Right? So we didn't know that was an issue because it was underground.
Right.
Now, had there been water coming out of the ground, maybe we would have figured that out. But we have three wells out there, and those wells produce predominantly most of our water.
Right.
And we're very fortunate to have those, and they work as well as they do. But what they do is they go into that ground storage. That ground storage then pumps them to the next line, and it disperses all over the city. So we had a couple holes there. We were able to drain that down. We had TCEQ, which governs our water for the state. They came out, and we paid an engineer a little right at $4,000. I think it was $3,800 to be exact. But we paid him. He came out and advised us on how to correct it, just like any other entity would have to do. You need advisement, you take it, and then you go from there. And so we were able to get that fixed. I don't remember what the price was on getting it fixed, but we bought a lot of our stuff here at Hickenbotham, and we were able to go out there and fix those problems, let the concrete set. But in my opinion, that's like putting a Band-Aid on something.
Right.
Eventually, it could happen somewhere else. So that's the goal here, is to get this $4 million grant to where we can start building away from that. Problem is, we're going to need multiple grants to redo the entire water system, because throughout the city it would cost upwards $20 million to redo.
Well, I know. I was talking to somebody today that lives here, and is on the city water, and they were concerned with, all that's going on, that people are saying, well, you need to do this, and you need to do this, and she's like, well, if you do this, and you do this, then our water bill's going to go up to $200 a month.
That's correct, too.
And I know that, I want to ask, back, it was 2017, I think, when you guys put in the new, you weren't there, I don't think.
We put them in actually in 2018.
18?
What happened was, I was elected in May of 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say it was the month before they had actually approved the water meters.
Right.
And then when I came on, the first meeting, they had discussed raising the water bills. And I said, whoa, that's really not fair to me, because the first thing that's going to happen is people are going to say that I chose to raise their water bill.
Right.
But we looked at the numbers, and we did figure out some things. And like I say, we've had lots of people giving us advice on how to financially make corrections that would help us. And while we were doing that, we did discover that if we were able to raise the bill, a minimal amount,
right,
then we would be able to increase our revenue, because it is a business, and we're still lower with our water price than all of the cities and counties that touch us. So that's
right.
something that we're working on. But yes, ma'am, if you're asking for, is inflation a problem? It can be in the future.
My question goes a little deeper than that.
Yes, ma'am.
One of the things that Steve showed us was a video that, and we put it up, in fact, on Trinity County News. But it was a video of the way the system was, how it would drip. The water, there'd be a tiny leak, and there would be a constant drip. And so a lot of water was being lost.
Correct.
And so a lot of revenue was being lost.
Correct.
And so the new system was supposed to correct that, because even moisture would be recorded, and therefore come back on the customer if they weren't doing what they needed to do, if they needed their toilet fixed and running or whatever, and that was supposed to increase the revenue.
Okay.
How did that work out?
It worked. Mr. Jones, Steve has worked diligently
I know he
in
has.
the water system.
Mm-hmm.
He has really done so much for us that people don't realize how hard he's actually working. There's people that disagree with some of the decisions he's made and maybe some of the actions, but I will tell you this, what I have seen personally is Steve has, with these new systems, it cost us quite a bit of money to get those.
Right.
But what we discovered, and Steve could tell you the exact numbers because this is his thing,
mm-hmm.
but it was in the upwards of 160 to 200 meters that were not even working whatsoever.
Yeah.
So if Ms. Schutz, if you and your husband or you and your family of four use countless amount of gallons, mm-hmm. you were only being charged a minimal
right.
because we weren't able to read your meter. Now we're able to read your meter to the nearest gallon.
Right.
Another thing, if your toilet, even if your toilet is running, it sends an alert to our computer
right.
that will tell you, hey, Ms. Schutz, and we'll call you and say, Ms. Schutz, you've used more water in this amount of time than you did last month or the month before, and then you tell us, well, I was filling up a pool or I was doing this or that. I mean, that's fine. It's yours. You're allowed to. It's your money. But we want to try to help you not get there. One of the problems is, and there's ways that people look at this, okay? But one thing about Trinity, Texas is we do have a lot of people on fixed incomes. Mm-hmm. And those people have trouble with their bills being inflated, their taxes being inflated or what have you. Some people say, well, we shouldn't worry about that because that's why we get a lot of people in here with lower incomes from these other cities. If we would pay higher taxes, it would keep them from coming in. But the other side of that is there's a lot of people that have lived here their whole life, and they are on a fixed income for whatever circumstance it may be. If you have somebody that retired in 1980 from the prison system, the money that they make now is nothing compared to what we make now where I work
right.
in the prison system. We're talking 30 years ago. Or I'm sorry, it would be 40 years ago. So their retirement is not as much as it would be today. So the dollar then is not the same as the dollar now. So I want to be frank when I tell you that the inflation of it is something I'm really worried about because we don't want to go up if we don't have to. We did increase the bill a little over $3 a month for the bare minimum, which with that we have our sewage, our water, and our trash all included.
What kind of increase did it do overall?
Okay.
And how is,
That's a good
what
question.
kind of money are you talking about in the increase of the revenue compared to what you'll be dealing with some of the new stuff you're going to be doing?
Okay, well, with the new stuff, right now, we wouldn't have to do
All
anything.
under a grant?
Yes, ma'am, it would be under a grant. The only thing that would come out of the city's pocket is a percentage. I want to say it's about 10% maybe, something. I believe it's 10%. But, no, ma'am, when you ask about the amount of water, I'm sorry, the question again was,
the money.
well, how much money do we?
What kind of money?
I'm sorry.
Because, I mean, I'm
We
sure
were
there's
bringing in
people
an
that,
average monthly of around $103,000. Now we're bringing in a monthly average anywhere from about $137,000. So it's brought it up about $34,000 by putting the new meters in
Right.
and by going up a few dollars. Okay, so yes, ma'am, it's brought our revenue up about $34,000, which is substantially a lot better than what we were bringing in. So it has helped us with our business.
yeah. Okay, you were talking about transparency.
Yes, ma'am.
And now I know you expressed that that's a concern of yours, that the city be transparent. And I'll be honest, I think that would be a wonderful thing.
I think that, you know,
Tell me
this
about
is,
it.
yes, ma'am, well, this is 2020. You know, in 1980, we only had radios or the newspaper. Well, you know, as well as I do, our newspaper comes out once a week.
Right.
We don't have an abundance of news like larger cities like Huntsville, Houston, and wherever you look. So, with us only having the newspaper once a week, one of the rules through TCEQ, which governs our water for the state, they say that you have to put it on the radio, which our closest radio station is Huntsville or Crockett,
Right.
and that you have to put the information in the newspaper. Well, if we have a boil water notice go out on a Friday,
Right.
and you're not listening to the radio, you don't see it until Wednesday if you read the paper. But everybody nowadays has a cell phone. And on that cell phone, they have either Facebook or they have internet. They have access to it. Or their mother has access, or their cousin, or whatever. So I believe that, and we talked about this the other night, and I want to make sure that I press through with this. Regardless if I'm reelected or not, I hope that the city and us as a whole will be more transparent for the citizens because they deserve it.
Right.
I think that we just want to know what's going on. Nobody likes the unknown.
Right.
And if we can be transparent, then we should.
Well, I think too, I'm on Facebook, and the last few months, especially since this COVID stuff, we haven't been out in the community like we were before. But I hear so much, especially on Facebook, on what's happening in Trinity County and whatever. And you know, and I see pictures of the brown water in the bathtubs. And a friend of mine had put a picture up the other day of his water hose, a huge water hose, and it was just brown water coming out. And you know, people are really struggling with this.
Sure.
And I know that there's people that are really angry, and people are afraid. I mean, when you're dealing with the water, that can be serious.
Sure.
And I know Steve has been concerned about it. He used to contact me, and he'd call me, and we would talk about it, and he would do videos, and he'd show me what the city was doing. But it's just gotten worse. And so I think that the transparency, and I think that you stating it right here where people can see that you're serious about it, I think it's going to make a big difference. There's people that like to stir.
Sure.
But then there's really great people out there that are concerned.
Well, you know, and I'm glad you brought up the brown water because I saw that Mr. Threlkill
Yes.
had that on there, and he has every right to do that.
Absolutely.
And he's a very intellectual man, and he's exactly right with the water system.
Right.
And I'll tell you this, I hate it because I live in city water. I've been on city water for 37 years, my entire life. I've lived in this city, and that's what I know.
Right.
And some friends of mine live up here. We call it Windy Hill, but it's where Dr. Sam Barnes built a subdivision years and years ago, right over here behind the VFW. And a very close friend of mine has lived there for probably 25 or 30 years, and I don't know that he's ever had a good thing to say about the water system. They have some of the older pipe. That is something I'd love to focus on with a grant as well as getting them fixed because they deserve it as well. But when you flush these lines, say there's any break anywhere, what happens is you have sedimentation.
Right.
And all the water has it. Any city that you go to has it. But when you flush those lines, what happens is that sediment that has settled down, it's going to come back up.
Right.
And it's dirt is what it is. It's sand and it's dirt, and we're in a sandy area. And so that happens. But this is what the problem is. People can live with it if it's once a month. People can't live with it when it's once a week or twice a week or every time. And it has been consistently, it's been consistently bad for the past couple months. I assure you that is something that we are working on, but we are working with TCEQ, and we're trying our best to stay as informed with them as possible, because every time someone makes a complaint on TCEQ, it comes before us, and when we find out that they did, and I'm not saying that we know who did it, I'm saying they tell us, hey, we have a complaint, this is what's going on, so we go check that area.
Right.
And there are some people that maybe a few that might overreact with it, but most citizens,
I'm sure
most citizens are very accurate with their issue.
What? The TCEQ?
TCEQ.
TCEQ. Okay, Steve has told me about them. But what authority do they have over the Trinity water system if you guys don't do it right?
Well,
can they do something? Or
yes, ma'am. They fine us. Yes, ma'am. We can be fined.
But that comes back on the.
Yes, ma'am. It comes out of our taxpayers' money. That's
absolutely
exactly right.
So then the city's not doing anything except raising taxes to pay for. So how does that work?
Well, and that's a good question, but I don't want to tell you something that I don't know for sure. But what I can tell you is they govern what we do. So if we have a problem with the water, they come out and they inspect it.
Right.
And then they make sure that we are under every regulation before they decide what their judgment is. We have been fined by them more than once over the last few years, and it's something that we're having to deal with. But yes, ma'am, there have been times that they've had to fine us, but for the most part what they do is they come out and give you an opportunity to fix it. Right. And so then they come back and they ensure that it's fixed. In this last round that we had, I don't know if you know all about it, but we had some bloodworms in some of the.
Heard about them,
yes, ma'am. Yes. We had some citizens that unfortunately had bloodworms, and it was based off of a neglect as well as just misfortune for all of us. But it's something that we had to fix, and we have fixed that. But in the process of that, we discovered that we had to get more involved with it, and we've set up a maintenance plan so that we will make sure that we're checking each one of those, not just waiting for our yearly evaluation or what have you, but so that we can govern ourselves before TCEQ comes in and inspects us, so that we're ahead of them.
You told me that on Thursday night you guys were talking in the meeting about doing a website and doing some things for that transparency so that people can go to it rather than just putting stuff out on Facebook. And you guys can stay on top of what's going on. Because I know that the city, I've been to the city website, and it's basically an information portal, is all it is. So tell me about what you're thinking about as far as a website and what you see it can do.
Yes, ma'am. Well, fortunately, we've had that nixel that kind of is able to, we're able to send out text messages. If you sign up for that, you get text messages telling you what different things are going on. Steve and I actually talked the other night, and the other council members. Believe me, we are a team. We don't always agree. We're like brothers and sisters. Sometimes we disagree, but at the end, we sit down and eat dinner together, So we understand that we have to be on the same page. But we were all talking about it and discussing our options. And there's a few options out there. One is building a website. One is going off of that nixel. So I don't have the definite answer yet, but it's something that we're definitely going to work on because it's a must. I want people to understand where we're at and why we're where we're at. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I know that I get the nixel notices, and I always, of course, it doesn't affect me because I don't live in the city. Yes, but I also know that there's a lot of stuff that comes across my phone, and I just kind of blitz it off. But I guess if I had to live, with it, and it was something I had to deal with, I would. In fact, I had somebody ask me the other day that just moved here. My brother just moved here, and he asked me about the boiling water thing, and I had to go look for it to find the information so I could tell him whether he needed to boil water or not.
Well, we had quite a few concerned citizens at the meeting the other night, and we really appreciate when people come and they give us that opportunity because we want people to see what's going on. And I'll tell you that most council meetings we have 2 or 3 in the audience. This last one we probably had probably in the area of 35 to 40 people.
Oh, that's good.
Yes, ma'am. And they want to make their voice known. And one individual, Mr. Cannon, he came in, he had a lot of questions. And we were able to answer most of his questions and leave him with a better understanding of what's going on, but not a complete answer because there were things that we still have to figure out. But he was very helpful with his questions.
Okay, we've been sitting, I don't know, we've been sitting here, what, 15 or 20 minutes and talking about
Yes, ma'am.
Several things. But what I want to do before I have you, I wanted you to look in the camera and talk to the constituents, the people that you will be dealing with. But I also want to kind of look at what we've discussed and has there been a solution? Have we, we've talked about the grants, where is that headed? And if you don't get the grants, then what's next?
Okay, the way that works is every year you're up for that grant, and each year you have a better chance. If you don't get it this year, you get it the next year or what have you. But to answer that question, I will tell you this: when I was newly elected, we were financially burdened. We were in a poor place as a city, and a city has to be run like a business.
Right.
And if your business isn't making money, you go bankrupt. Mm-hmm. And so we were really in a bad place due to some decisions made way before I ever was able to get on the council. And by no means have I made huge changes myself, but as a group, we have sat down and we have discussed and we have worked on as simple as asking them to not just go with one company, but if you need something, you shop around and get the best deal, because when you go grocery shopping, a lot of people grocery shop in Trinity, but a lot of people, they like to look at what's on sale and they go other places for other sale. That's right, because we have to bargain shop. Well, it's the same with our money. When I spend $1 in the city, I'm spending the taxpayers' money, whoever that is. When you buy something at Brookshire Brothers, we get a tax off of that. When you buy it, you help us, but guess what? If I don't spend that money properly, then I'm making mistakes. So we sat down and we started doing the small things as well as the large things. They say, some people tell you work the big things out, the little things will work their way out, and vice versa. No, you have to start from the bottom and work all the way to the top and then back down and go back and forth to get a budget where it's supposed to be. And that's another thing. A budget needs to be a budget. So when you build a budget, you can't just throw money here and there. You have to try to stay within that budget, because I know every month at my house I'm going to pay an X amount of dollars for my cell phone service, for my electrical service, for whatever it is that I have. I'll pay a set amount, and I know that I have to budget myself for that. I can't go out and buy a new vehicle every month because I don't make that much money. So we started doing that, and we started building, and now I can safely say that we are a little over, between about $700,000 in the bank. Which is when I was first there, ma'am, we were under. So that just tells you. But a lot of that has to do with that water system making us an extra $30,000 or $40,000 a month.
I was wondering about that because you've been there less than 2 years.
No, ma'am, I was
over 2 years.
Yes, sir. Because of COVID, we didn't get to have our election in May.
Yeah.
So I've actually been on there 6 months longer than.
But that's scary when you think about. Of course, it's good that the water, that it's increasing, but it's a sad situation that we're a poverty-stricken town.
Correct.
Before then.
And let me tell you, our city officials, every one of them that sit on that council, they really are trying to make a difference. It may not always have looked that way in some people's eyes, but they don't realize what we go through and what we're trying to do. And it's not a paid position. It's not anything but just trying to be a part of your community.
Right.
I love Trinity, Texas. I've lived here my whole life. It's funny. I tell people all the time. My dad taught us as kids, me and my sister, to love Trinity. Love God, love your family, and love Trinity. And he meant that. When I was 16 years old, I went to Brookshire Brothers, and me and some guys were all in our trucks, and some of them went and mud dogging is what I call it, or mud, whatever you want to say. And behind the baseball fields there, behind the t-ball field, back then there was no little fields there. It was just a parking lot, and some guys had went and got some mud. And so where'd y'all getting that mud? And they said, back behind the baseball field. So I went back there and I did a donut, come out and got mud all over my truck. Parked in the yard, and the next morning I got up to go to church. And Dad says, "Son, where you headed?" I said, "Dad, it's Sunday. I work 6 days a week. Sunday's my day. I'm going to church. After church, I'm going to go play golf." And I came home, and Dad says, hey, go put your work clothes on. We got some work to do. And I said, Dad, I want to go play golf today. And he said, I didn't know that I asked you what you want to do, son. He said, you're going to do what your daddy said. And I said, yes, sir. So I went and put my clothes on, and he took me to the baseball field, and he made me clean every bit of it with a rake and with a shovel. And he took pictures with a Polaroid, and he put them on the dash of my truck. And he said, son, when you mess with Trinity, you mess with me. And he meant that. And I'm telling you,
I can see your dad doing that. I can see that.
Miss Schultz, I'm telling you, he did.
I can see it.
But he loves this city, and he's instilled it in me.
Right.
And I do love this place. I love everything about it. So I promise you, the goal here is to build this city and increase the revenue without having to hurt the taxpayers, but yet be able to build an infrastructure that will be on for years to come.
Now, why don't you look into the camera and tell the constituents, the people of Trinity, what you know, what you believe you can do for them and have been doing in the next, 2 years?
Yes, ma'am. It would actually be 18 months this round because we'll go back to the May election.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Well, my name is Jason Neal Smith, and everyone that knows me knows my name is Bubba. I was born in Huntsville Hospital, and 2 days after I was born, Dad brought me home, and he said, he's not a Jason, we're going to call him a Bubba. So, I went to school here my entire life. My mother was a school teacher. My dad worked for the prison system. And we lived here, and every day of my life, I was taught right from wrong. I was disciplined when I needed to be, and I was loved when I deserved it. I say deserved it. I was loved every day. But Dad showed tough love, and so did Mom, and they were both good to me and my sister. But when I graduated high school from Trinity, I went to school. I went to work for the prison system, and I went to school and I got an associate's degree in criminal justice at Angelina College. I furthered my college at Sam Houston State, where I lack about 15 hours from graduating, and most of you are probably going to kick me for not finishing it. But I've been with the prison system for 19 years now. I'm currently a major at the Jasper unit, the Goodman unit in Jasper, Texas. And, I've lived here my entire life, and I love this place. I love the people in Trinity. I love what we're about. I know that we get some bad accusations about us as a county, a city sometimes, but I'm going to tell you, there's no better place to live, in my opinion. I've lived here all my life, and I'll die right here. This is home, and I'm so grateful to have sat on the council for as long as I have. And if I'm reelected, I promise you I'll do the best I can to continue that. And if I'm not reelected, then I'll do whatever I can to help those that are there. Mr. Arnold, that's running against me, is my cousin. He and I grew up together, and I have nothing ill to say about him, nor Mr. English. Mr. English and I worked together at the prison system for years, and it would do me no justice to say anything ill about either one of them because I've known them for years and we've never had any cross words. They both probably want to do what's best for the city as well, and if elected, I hope that that's what they'll do as well. But we are building something that we're trying to improve, and I just feel like 2 years hasn't been enough time for me to make the impact that I'd like. So I hope to stay there and continue what I'm doing so that I can learn as much as I can about city politics before possibly running for a larger office once I retire from the prison system. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes,
Appreciate you coming in.
I appreciate it so much.